Rise of Empires. Martin Wallace is put out by Phalanx. So, as a Phalanx game, and I'll hit this crap before I go any further, the components, in terms of just sheer, stock that it's printed on an artistic look, ability, tend to be very good. They make these, first of all, the board is double-sided, and this is not the first time they've done this with some art kind of on the back. Doesn't really cost them a whole hell of a lot to put an extra printing on there, but it kind of pleases me. The actual appearance of it is functional and somewhat appealing. The stock on, wooden cubes are wooden cubes, but the stock on the counters, etc., is all very much first rate. The rule book, a little ambiguous in places, may have some issues. There's no question about that. What do you expect? It's a Martin Wallace game. They never seem to really, he just doesn't nail things down very well. But it's fairly readable, and the player aid, very helpful overall. However, the components do have their issues. This little board that you store all your crap on, well, the piles are a little big, in part because the counters are so thick and lavish. If I always seem to have trouble with games with a lot of iconography, and this one relies on them. I've seen other people complain about it in this. It's not, it's not very bold, and that's kind of a decision perhaps to favor the artwork over the informational content. And I can kind of understand that, but I find the artwork itself is sometimes very hard for me to distinguish the pieces by even just that, even if I'm not worried about what those pieces do, because I do have my player aids. I can look them up, right? Okay. There's places I want to get with this that I'll probably forget if I don't jump right to them, but they're so key and important and just wonderfully insightful thoughts of mine that I want to withhold them a little bit. What about the basic mechanisms to the game? So this is largely just your action selection type of game. It's got one cute little thing that really fits in, which is the fact that this little track goes in both directions down here on the bottom. Basically, whatever you select in the odd number turns, well, those are the same actions you're going to take in the even number turns, and the timing is kind of based on the timing with which you do them, although you have flexibility if you're willing to pay some money. That's really the exciting thing about this one. The unexciting thing about this game is it's about a really cool topic, and the pieces, the cards, well, the little components, they all sort of work together. They work together about as well as, say, a choirs, hotel chains, etc. work together, which is to say, you're not going to be picturing the rise of empires, and there's no great, at least if you're like me, you're not getting any great scope of civilization type story that you get certainly in Civilization, although I'm told that's not a Civ game anymore, that this is a Civ game, whatever the hell this is. I don't feel like I'm playing the computer Civilization either, because I'm not moving around attacking. The computer Civilization is much more of a combat game, but I'm just not getting any story here, because the map means nothing. It's just another place to put little cubes and little pieces. It's all just this kind of optimization and resource management, and build your little engine and generate victory points and see who can do the worst or best. it's sort of you're constantly trying to figure out how to optimize your play, so you have no time to sit back and enjoy the story. And if you try to, there isn't one there, really. You know, does that make it a bad game? No, it actually doesn't, because I think it actually works and hangs together fairly solidly. And that got me to thinking, and this is where things get magical. And, you know, if you just want to know about Rise of Empires, get out of here, man. If you're here for my babbles, this is you know, why you're not listening just to Vassal or anyone else. So I think this started really preying on me heavily when I started thinking about the coin games. And it's that this was a very tight finish. Basically, the conclusion that I'm coming to is there are many paths to victories. That's supposed to be some kind of good thing. I don't know. What it also means kind of is pick one and it doesn't much matter, right? There are some that are harder to make work. There are things that you can do that are mistakes, and they will screw you over. And we saw that in my solo play. A couple of the players fell far behind because they were starving the whole game. And it's bad to be starving. It's bad to mismanage your resources in a terrible way, like not have gold when you need gold, or not have resources that you need for the actions you have planned in the B route. There's a lot of stuff you can mess up in this, and then you're out of it, you know, unless other people are messing up equally badly. But as long as everybody seems to kind of work fairly well in whatever strategy they're taking, and as long as no one's just slamming the hell out of someone, as long as the balance and power of the game that this multiplayer game kind of ensures, hey, he's in the lead, let's go hit him, knock him down a few pegs, and you have some ability to do that, at least if they have any board presence at all. You don't have a whole hell of a lot if they don't, although you can do some kind of blocking moves and steal their choices and stuff. But it'll stay pretty close, and just the dynamics of the balance of power are going to keep the game reasonably close. And we saw 3 of the 5 players right up there, you know, within a point of each other before we counted the final score. And I think that's probably pretty common with this. And to some people that's very exciting. To me, I kind of look at it and say, well, what is it that drove that, you know, final... What differentiated between people? And it might be strategy. In some games it's luck. It's not luck in this game. There's very little luck in this game. There's a little bit in terms of what options are available to you at precise times, but for the most part, you know everything that's going to come out, and some of it is a lot of it is time bounded. So like the cities are all going to come out in a certain order, and they're kind of important. So knowing the game will probably improve your play, but that's just a matter of having knowledge about what pieces are coming out when and what they're worth and what you can do with them, as opposed to, you know, any kind of clever new strategy that you could use. No, you memorize the game. You know, a game that can be improved by that manner, well, generally what happens is one person figures out some key strategies, another person kind of figures out and memorizes the cards, and they all kind of balance out, and then they sort of work their way up and they stay kind of even the whole way. So every game's kind of exciting, but eventually you're going to hit a plateau, and it's not going to be too long, I can assure you, where there really isn't much more to this game. You know, there's not going to be a lot more to explore. It can still be fun to do this little optimization problem, to see what happens when people with slightly different thinking face each other. But, like I said, there are a lot of different paths to victory, so you can kind of shift gears and go a different way. You're not going to get terribly screwed by the luck. You're responsible for screwing yourself if you're going to do that. So what's the problem with that? That all sounds great, right? Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about the coin games when I played them. And like I said, that's where I started thinking about this. And with them, there's a luck factor that if people are close, it kind of determines the game. And the same thing with Here I Stand. If everybody kind of plays very defensively, at the end there's a certain luck factor. It's not, they're different natures. In this one, that luck factor is kind of missing. It's really just the balance of power factor that comes down to it, and maybe some pre-planning. You may have some edge that you've built in over the course of it, but you're going to stay in and be in a close game. But the problem of the multiplayer is that there's all these dualities that every one of them seems negative. So, for example, game's always close. Your decisions didn't really matter. Game doesn't usually end up close. There's a runaway leader problem, right? No luck in a game? Well, it's pretty much deterministic by the player's behavior and how they gang up on each other what's going to happen. Too much luck? It's too random. My strategy doesn't help. This fits into some of those categories, but obviously since they're dualities, it doesn't fit into all of them. This is a mostly luckless, mostly strategy-based, close game. All sound like good things, but they do all have their negative side. They are all a negative side of that duality. And I think anywhere along the spectrum, you will be making arguments. I mean, even if you're in the middle of one of these things, well, it's going to be too much luck for some people and not enough luck for others. And everybody's going to have some complaint against it. And that's kind of the problem that I see with the multiplayer games. And what allows me, at least, to leave those problems behind is a strong link to the storyline. And I'll tell you, it's true in two-player games, too. I mean, this is essentially a mathematical puzzle. It's an enjoyable one, but how many times can you do it and still want to keep doing it, right? And that is what is lacking in this. I feel like some of Wallace's other games are a little bit more connected to some kind of topic. I love the example of Struggle of Empires, because I ranted and really despised how it took what felt like it's supposed to be a historical period and a historical sense of the world, and just, made it into a fantasy land. This one never felt realistic enough to make that complaint. There's no topic that this really covers. Everything is just discontinued. The fact that all the pieces kind of clear off the board, depending on how you play, of course, but a lot of the players end up with no board presence at all at times. Maybe everybody's off the board because they want to optimize their points. And saving for the future, in that sense, doesn't really work. Saving for the future in terms of getting, particular technology advances, which don't really feel like technology advances. They're just little abilities on little pieces of cardboard, just like in Struggle of Empire, they feel that way. And in a lot of Euros, they feel that way in the buildings in Puerto Rico and everything. It just feels like a Euro. It's a Euro with a little bit more conflict than, is generally attributed to Euros. And I'm willing to say, I mean, if anybody wants to say, that's not a Euro, that's a Wallace game and they're special because they have so much conflict, I'm willing to concede that. I don't know what a Euro is, I don't know what it is. But there's clearly a strong element of Euro design in this, in the sense that, I might be willing to tell you, to agree with you that I don't know Euros and that this doesn't fit that tag for specific reasons, but it would be along the lines of a big hex encounter game with CRTs and everything in it. And then I argue, well, it's not really a war game because it covers, like Twilight Struggle, too big an era to really be considered a war game. It covers too large a scope. It's more of a geopolitical game. Well, that kind of argument is too subtle, I think, when all the mechanisms and everything are purely of one nature, and the spirit seems like it. You know, there's no story here. It's just, it's a cube pusher, right? It's a neat one, but it's a cube pusher. Anyway, the things that the Eurogamer admires, to me, don't seem like they are sufficient ever, and for this game it feels that way, to solve the problem of the multiplayer game, right? You know, all those dualities, none of them make too much difference if you're playing a rich game like Europa Universalis, Empires in Arms, Pax Britannica, Road to the White House, 18XX. Now, 18XX does have something over this. I feel like there's a lot of room for people to kind of plot out different ways of approaching XX games, at least most of them, that I don't think there is anything comparable on this, or to tell you the truth, on most Euro games. But that's design may have found a way to push beyond the dualities on a purely strategic type basis. I don't feel like the storyline is all that compelling in an XX game or in a Winsome design. But I do feel that maybe the richness of play is just a little, few notches higher. Anyway, for this one, you know, I don't know why I picked it up. Probably looking online, it looks like it was probably the Vassal review that sold me on, hey, I'm interested in that game. Maybe it's better than Struggle of Empires. That's what he says. Well, I felt like this was soulless compared to Struggle of Empires. However, the fact that it doesn't get everything wrong makes it a little bit better. And I'm not just harsh on Martin Wallace. I think he's done some great games. I really like Brass. I enjoyed Byzantium. I think there's a couple others that I kind of got a real kick out of. His train games I kind of like. I don't know. But anyway, it's not that I'm just, you know, I really dislike his style of games or anything. And actually, again, I prefer this to Struggle of Empires because this doesn't pretend to being at all about a subject matter and then fail completely to be about it. You know, I really despise the idea of some kids pick up a game and say, "Ah, yeah, Austria could have easily had colonies in the New World." Not, you know, starting in 1700. You know, if you branch off from there, no, I'm sorry, they could not have. They didn't have the naval tradition. They didn't have this, that, and the other, and they could not have probably built it up in a century. This game is so abstracted. It's like Vinci to me. It doesn't feel like I'm doing anything at all grounded anywhere. It is perhaps thematic in the sense that the little cards have pictures on them that kind of relate to the kinds of things that maybe you could imagine them doing if you wanted to work real hard at that. What it's not is topical nor related to a subject matter. And any game that's just thematic, well, you know, that's like playing Simpsons chess. It's got nothing to do with the Simpsons. It's just a mathematical puzzle that you're trying to solve without any context that actually helps me mostly. This is the thing that makes me most interested in games. Helps me really link to the actions I'm taking in the game and enjoy them more. But also helps inform what your decisions should actually be. I mean, if I'm playing a game of, I don't know, a Civil War battle. And I've got my army there, and I'm trying to decide, well, should I just kind of, concede at this point because I can't possibly win the game, or should I, take a risk that's going to destroy my whole army almost assuredly, but maybe I can win the game because of the way the victory conditions are crafted. And I view that latter option as so breaking the spirit of a game of that nature that I'm no longer accepting that it's about that topic. I'm trying to play it as a mathematical model when it was never intended to be. Likewise, though, I think if I tried to play this and said, oh no, I want to be England and I just want to sit over in Northern Europe and then I want to, go into North America at some point, and that's my goal for the game, I think I'm breaking the spirit of this game, which is this opportunistic optimization and just trying to play the Euro mathematical design behind it. And that's what this is really about. It's not about an Age of Empires or a Rise of Empires. It's about playing a mathematical model. Is that harsh? No. The only thing that I find harsh about it is I really doubt that many people are going to play this too many times. It has kind of a high rating. I'm kind of surprised that it's not, almost nothing keeps my attention very much. But I just do not see much depth of play in this. Nor do I see the kind of luck factor that kind of drives a game to be kind of compelling in the sense of you're doing all this risk management. There is something definitely cute about the mechanism, and it's worth exploring, that little, I gotta plan ahead and then plan on the way back for what I'm going to be doing on the way back. There's definitely room, to improve play up to a point, but I think that point is not terribly a high bar. That kind of disturbs me in a game without a luck factor. I'm okay with a game with a lot of luck in it that doesn't have a terribly high bar for the strategy. But then again, most Euros that aren't just glued together systems trying to achieve complexity without any subject matter that they're really tied to don't, I think, have a terribly high bar. And I think the ones that are just glued together probably don't have a terribly high bar either. But the thing is, they're just so hard to kind of grasp all the moving pieces, especially without sort of the subject matter to help drive your investigation under reasonable lines, that the mathematical puzzle of optimizing becomes complex enough that most people can't just solve it in a few plays. Not solve it in the formal game theory sense, but solve it in the sense that there isn't a lot more of interest for them to learn from the game. And I just don't think there's a lot of interest to learn from this one. However, it is an enjoyable little pastime for a while. Alright, let's send her up.